Hello. Welcome back, everyone, to another Let's Talk Games. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about my top 5 Harvest Moon games. If you're new to the channel, you should know that I am a big fan of farm games, with Stardew Valley being one of my top 5 games of all time. So, I figured with all the gaming news coming out right now, why not talk about my top 5 games? Now, for simplicity's sake, I understand that Harvest Moon is now under the guise of Story of Seasons, but as some of my favorite Harvest Moon games are still kind of Harvest Moon games, I'm going to go back and forth between referring to them as Harvest Moon Story of Seasons. So if I do say something like Harvest Moon Friends of Mineral Town, even though it's now Story of Seasons, you understand why, so you don't need to put it in the comments. And of course, I hate to specify this, but this is my top 5 list. I am not a game critic by any means, or a critic in general. These are just the top 5 games I have enjoyed the most. Okay, let's start. So coming in at number 5 is Harvest Moon Friends of Mineral Town for the Game Boy Advance. Even though Friends of Mineral Town is coming in at 5th place, and that is 5th place out of all Harvest Moon games, at least to me, this Harvest Moon game is actually responsible for a lot of the core mechanics and farm games that would go into future Harvest Moon games, and Story of Seasons. So, it was pretty good. Now, coming in at 4th place is quite an obscure one because I never actually hear anyone mention it when they're talking about Harvest Moon games. But 4th place is going to Harvest Moon: A Magical Melody, specifically for the Wii. Up until researching some of the games on my list, I never actually realized this one came out in GameCube, so I'll be talking about it for the Wii. Now, I don't actually remember a lot of playing this game. I did play it back in the Wii when it first came out, but I don't actually remember a lot of the characters like I do in the other games. But the reason why it's number 4 on my list is the art style. I love how smooth and rounded all the characters looked in that kind of chibi fashion that I think they really nailed with this entry. And although I'm sure they did it with Harvest Moon games before this one, and they continued it after, the kind of chibi fashion of all the animals, especially the cows, I love how the cows look in this game. It's just, that's weirdly a kind of a big deal for me of how the other animals and stuff look in the game, and for me, this one just nails it. So yeah, number 4. Now coming in at 3rd place is actually one of the newer entries to the series. It's Story of Seasons: Pioneers of Olive Town. I would say out of all the Harvest Moon and Story of Seasons games that are on this list, this one's probably the one that kind of breaks the mold the most. And while I definitely enjoyed how it kind of took the formula and tried to turn it into something a bit different with the kind of tiered farms where you would unlock new places and then new parts, that's something that I don't remember experiencing in other Harvest Moon games. Usually you just get the map and then you can free roam, versus in this you have to unlock better items to get to newer areas, and that's how you get certain things. It wasn't the best for me, but I definitely enjoyed what the game was and how it played. And I will say, of all the Harvest Moon games on the list, this one has the best customization for your character, and that is also something that's very important to me in games. I always like to make myself. That's how I enjoy games, it's kind of how I get into them, especially kind of life sim games. I like to put a little me in there, see me run around and do stuff. That's just how I get behind it. So I definitely appreciated the character customization, and that definitely heightened the game, and probably why it came in 3rd. Now for my 2nd most favorite Harvest Moon game of all time, and for once it is actually a remake of a previous title, and a previous title on this list. It's Story of Seasons: Friends of Mineral Town. Now, honestly, this game doesn't really break the mold in any fashion. It's a pretty standard Harvest Moon / Story of Seasons farm game, and it's probably circumstantial as to why it came in 2nd, but I played this game during lockdown, when everything was shut and we were kind of forced to stay inside. Now, that's not to diminish how good the game actually is. It's still very fun, it's still a really great farm game, and a really great Harvest Moon / Story of Seasons game, but I played it when there was a time when we couldn't go outside, so this was sort of my escape, my way to get outside and kind of live a life. And honestly, I loved it. I had the best time playing this game, getting to know the characters, really putting in the time to kind of learn their backstories and who they were and stuff like that. This was a lot of fun. In fact, I still kind of want to go back and platinum the game on PlayStation just because of how much fun I had. So yeah, that's why this list is very subjective, and of course it's my own opinion, because I experienced that. Although, if you had a similar experience, please let me know in the comments. It would be cool to kind of go through and talk about how we all kind of shared this farming life experience while the world crumbled around us. Okay, now the moment you've been waiting for, and one I am very excited to announce. In fact, this was my first ever farm game. It got me into farm games in general, and it actually made me want to become a farmer in real life. So, the #1 spot on this list goes to Harvest Moon: A Wonderful Life on the GameCube. That's right, folks, A Wonderful Life on the GameCube is the first ever farm game I ever played, and it's the reason I get into farm games. Between the mechanics, the soundtrack, the settings, and the characters, oh, and not to mention the mini-games, this had to have been my all-time favorite Harvest Moon / Story of Seasons game. And of course, spoiler alert to anyone that's never actually played it before, this, to my knowledge, is the only farm game where you become old and eventually die. That's right, the game actually has an ending story. Although, I will say that that's actually one of the features that I never liked. I never liked that, it ended. Or ended in a sad way, But the characters you meet along the way are honestly some of the best written in any farm games. They just feel real, and the reasons why they're so close and beside you feel honest and kind of not forced. It all feels very organic. The whole cycle of the game honestly just feels like one of the best. And although I said that I love the chibi style animals, in this one, the animals weren't actually very chibi at all. They kind of took on more of a realistic approach. Not realistic to the point where, they look like they're out of God of War, but certainly to the degree that all the other Harvest Moon games go for a more cartoonish feel. Yeah, these ones probably seem the more realistic. And I know I should probably look this up, but I'm going based off memory. I'm pretty sure you could connect Harvest Moon: A Wonderful Life to Harvest Moon: Friends of Mineral Town through a Game Boy cable when you kind of went to the edge of the hill at the end of Forgettable Valley? I know I should look this up. I don't tend to script this, so I'm not entirely sure what it's called, but I'm pretty sure you can connect them, and that's pretty cool. And there we have it, my top 5 Harvest Moon / Story of Season games of all time. Of course, with Harvest Moon: A Wonderful Life being my #1, it was the very first farm game I ever played, and it got me into farm games, as I said before, so it had to be #1. But the most exciting thing about this, and it's one of the reasons why we decided to make the video in the first place, is Harvest Moon: A Wonderful Life is actually being remade for the Switch, and PS4, PS5, Steam, I think Xbox, I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, the remake is of course going to be called Story of Seasons: A Wonderful Life. I'm so much very excited for it because it's kind of an upgrade of graphics. There's some changes to the character models, specifically the main cast, that I don't like, but I'm very excited to go and replay what really brought out my love for farm games in the first place. So, if you're excited about that too, leave it in the comments because, whoo boy, so am I. And of course, please let me know what you thought of the list. Were these your top 5? Did I miss any hidden gems? Let me know in the comments below. Keep on gaming, everyone. Bye!